buying these things in retirement could lead to big regrets. Now, I'm only going off couples and people who we've helped at Streamline who have retired and then made these purchases, and then they've shared some of the negatives with us. So I don't want it to be a blanket statement about these things you never should buy. That's not what I mean, because you could very well make these purchases and it be one of the best decisions that you've ever made. And if that's true, if you have made these decisions that we go over in this video and you love it, share it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. But let's at least get into it and then you can see what I mean. The first common retirement purchase is one that leads to regrets. It's probably one that you've thought about before, but the last one that I mentioned is probably one that's gonna stump you. Again, all these things, if you've got the money, go for it. But at least I want to share what other people are doing and how they're feeling so that you can kind of school off them. Because if you were a younger sibling and you had older siblings and you saw them get in trouble for something when you were younger and that kind of taught you, oh, don't do that thing or do it more sneakily than they did it. Same thing here as we're looking at people who are a few years ahead of us in retirement. Let's school off them and maybe improve our lives a little bit too. So the most common expensive thing that sometimes people buy in retirement is that expensive car. Now, it may be mainly for guys, but we've seen this also really go both ways. There's some women that have done the same thing in retirement with the car that they drive. Now, here's the good news with those people. They could all afford it, and it didn't impact their retirement plan. But when they kind of looked at what the money cost of the car was and then what the value of the actual result was, there was a little bit of a difference there. And what ended up happening with them is about 3 months in, they'd say something like, it's nice, the car's nice, but it kind of wears off. The thrill wears off after a few weeks. But again, we've also got car enthusiasts who have a completely different feeling when they get into their car and when they drive it, even a year or 2 years down the road. So again, it's just one thing that we've seen is that big car purchase. The next one that some people have regretted was a big retirement house. So an upgrade from where they were. Once they retire or move to a new state, they might do a much bigger upgrade. And we see it a lot very soon after retirement, a few years later. Sometimes they end up selling that place and getting a place that is more suited for their needs. Again, I don't want to influence you on how to live your life or what the next purchase is, but we've seen some of the happiest retirees, if they're doing a move, we've seen them rent the home or apartment first to make sure the new location is the absolute best place for them. And that gives them a little bit more flexibility, especially right after transition in these big transition years. There's so much changing. Sometimes renting and staying a little flexible could be a good move. Now, the next thing that could lead to regret, this one is the one that may shock you, and that is big gifts to family. Now, we are big believers in generosity and contributing to others' lives in retirement, but the regret that we've seen or heard from 80-year-olds or older is they started to give to kids on a regular basis, and then in the beginning it was quite special. And then after a little while, it became more of an expectation. So the kids started to expect the financial gift. It's like, let's say mom and dad gave a $10,000 gift on Christmas to their kids. And then, wow, that's super special. What a surprise. And then next year, oh, that's special. They gave another $10,000 gift. That's really nice. And then the next year, they might be thinking, well, I hope we get another $10,000 gift from mom and dad this year. And then the next year, it might be mom and dad are going to give that $10,000 gift. So maybe we should, let's go ahead and make that purchase. Or it starts to get worked into their regular monthly spending needs, which either that's what you want to have happen and you know about it ahead of time, or it's not what you want to have happen and you just don't want them to have that expectation, if that makes sense. So the main thing to think about here is what's the expectation of your kids? If you have the funds to provide that 10K gift, and it doesn't impact you at all, by all means, that's a great thing to do. But if it's meant to be just a few-year gift or maybe a periodic gift, just make sure that the expectation is known. And the same thing happens when when you pass away. The most important thing isn't the money that you're going to pass along, but the fact that you have a conversation with the kids so they know what to expect. Because you don't want two things to happen. You don't want them to have too much wealth, sudden wealth, impact them in a negative way. And then you also don't want them to squabble over wealth because it wasn't clearly laid out. If legacy is on your mind as we're talking about this, I recorded another video that's called the 3 must-have assets for retirement. So that should pop up on the screen sometime soon. So hopefully just those few ideas were helpful. If it is helpful, this kind of off-the-cuff video, let me know, and it'd be helpful to know. But thank you and have a great rest of your day.